On a special crossover event. Really good starting pitching meets a really offensive friendly ballpark and a classic matchup of expansion teams. Who's going to come out on top? Who's really the better team? The Colorado Rockies or the Miami Marlins?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans and Marlins fans, welcome into a special Locked On crossover event here on the Locked On Rockies and Locked On Marlins podcast. I'm one of your hosts today, Paul Holden, joined by the one, the only, the biggest Marlins fan on the other side of the pond, Peter Pratt from the Locked On Marlins podcast. Peter, how's it going?
Everything's good. Everything's good. I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be a fun conversation. Like you said, starting pitching meets Coors. That is the perfect teaser to this series, no doubt. But I'm good. How you doing, brother?
I am, doing well. The Rockies, unfortunately, in their most recent series, not playing their best ball, but better ball since the beginning of the year and playing a team that I think is always pesky for the Rockies. It seems like the Marlins always have the Rockies number, especially in Miami more specifically than Coors. Rockies can have some stuff that comes alive. And we'll dive right into the coverage here, but we want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. And guess what? You can catch all the Rockies and Marlins action all week long on the SiriusXM app or on SiriusXM. Just search Rockies or Marlins and you are going to find the feed of your choice, and you can tune in all week. And we got you covered every day of the week right here on the Locked On Podcast Network with your team every day. And if your team is the Rockies or the Marlins, you're in the right spot. And I want to start here. Above 500 ball as of recording right now. Offense is obviously, I think the most impressive thing about the Marlins this year is that record in one-run ball games. In fact, I did a whole episode inspired by the one-run ball game because that's the difference maker. Those games are going to be the ones that get the Marlins into the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt. It's wild. Just 2022, how bad it was, how poor the Marlins were in one-run games. 2023, they have flipped the script. Truly, it has been historic. The start of the year with one-run games is sensational. The funny thing is from maybe you look from the outside looking in, you'd think, the Marlins, they're on a lucky streak here. This is all, luck's going to even out. The eyeball test to me with this Marlins team says this is just about the pen holding up, some timely hits, but this isn't luck. They're playing well when they have a lead. So can they keep it going? Will it even up as the year goes? We'll wait to see. But listen, as a Marlins fan, every win seems to be by one run. It's so close. It's so dramatic watching these games. And a lot of them have come from behind wins as well. So not only are they winning by one, but they're having to come from behind and then get the save at the back end. So it's been a fun start to the year. And I would say, the Marlins aren't firing on all cylinders either. To be honest, you got to look at, Sandy Alcantara, I think is the perfect example. The reigning Cy Young, and he's had a slow start. He's got an ERA over 5. And he's barely won. I think he's 1-6, maybe 1-5 this year. So he's been extremely slow for Sandy. You would have thought, right, if the Marlins were sitting there a couple of games over 500, back end of May, Sandy's probably had a good start. He hasn't. Mm-hmm. And it's been the bullpen that's been carrying this team. And we have not said, well, since I started following the team in 2016, to be honest with you. So this is a new look Marlins, no doubt about it.
Well, and, it kind of speaks, I think, to at least what the identity, at least for me on the outside. Granted, I'm not always following the Marlins, but this is a team that can pitch. And if you can pitch, you just need the one hit. You need the one bloop single or the one Jazz Chisholm, just moonshot to center field. Mm-hmm. And as stressful as it is, it's a really good feeling when you're confident you can win the one-run ball game. And I think if that trend continues, even if it even outs, I mean, that's the law of baseball. There's a lot of baseball games. More, they're going to drop some of them. But if you're still well above 500 going down into the wild card game hunt or even the division hunt down the line, that's big because guess what? A one-run win over the Braves is still a win over the Braves. A one-run win over the Mets is still a win over the Mets. And if that's a strength, that's a great secret weapon, especially again, it's a win. And that's something that when the Rockies were turning things around, they were winning more. They were getting back to 500 when it comes to winning one-run ball games. But this is a team that doesn't have starting pitching depth in this. So I'm curious, is there enough on this Marlins offense to come into Coors and take advantage of a weaker Rockies rotation? This is a Rockies rotation that does not have German Marquez, Antonio Senzatella, or more of their starters as well. The two of them, those key marquee starters right there, and then the people they called up, including Noah Davis, they don't have, and then they lost another call up after Ryan Feltner with another injury. So the Rockies are really grasping at some straws here in terms of some starters. So does this Marlins offense have enough, or is maybe looking for a Coors Field series to kickstart?
That's a great question. It's like, can Coors inspire the offense? The offense has been, below average. It's ahead of the year. We're thinking, is it a new look offense? But not really. You just add in Luis Arias into the mix, and let's be totally honest, Luis Arias has been miles better than I expected. Didn't watch a ton of Twins games, obviously. But, seeing him day after day, what a hitter. Phenomenal hitter. You're getting Jorge Soler that you expected. But obviously, Jazz Chisholm to the IL, Jesus Sanchez that we saw. I mean, one of the biggest home runs ever. Last season, Jesus Sanchez at Coors, where it was up in like the 19th deck. I don't know. I was so high up. It was incredible.
Yeah, I forgot about that. It's just like, oh yeah, I forgot that was in the Marlins series where you got an absolute hold of that one.
He did, but he's just hit the IL as well. So a few of the the key components of this offense are on the IL. Jazz Chisholm, included in that. So the offense at the moment, it's just trying to piece things together and. This could be the right series, and the Marlins are going to be looking. It's a 4-game series. They're going to be looking to try and win this series and keep the momentum rolling. So, it all goes through Luis Arias. It all goes through Jorge Soler. Those two boys, if they play well, the Marlins will play well. But the question's been in the most recent series or two is what can the bottom of the lineup do now? Jazz and Jesus are out. Can you start to see something from 5 downwards? Brian De La Cruz is heated up, which is great, but right now we have to say the Marlins offense is below par. If their pitching can keep them in contention into, late July, let's say, what kind of moves do they make? And who do they make them with? And in some ways, the Marlins and Rockies, who knows? But, we could be trade partners further down the line. We'll wait to see. But, the Marlins are looking for some sticks. You maybe think about like a CJ Crone. Could that be an interesting stick for the Fish? I think he's an interesting stick in general. But yeah, the Marlins need to add some more sticks in there if they're serious this year. But the question is the offense and the pitching take them far enough into July to make them buyers? And I think that's going to be the key for this club. But a timely series in Coors. We'll wait to see the Coors effect, though. I don't know. I mean, I'm to your point on the lead up here. The intro. How are the pitchers going to do? Uri Perez going to be going in Coors, and for me, that is the most intriguing pitching outing from any Marlins pitcher this series, I think.
And you said it there as well. The Rockies, a key point against this pitching as well. How are they going to factor? Is going to be the bottom line, a part of the lineup for the Rockies. It's often been young guys that have filled that with some of their injuries. It's been some of the different guys filling that role. When the Rockies have had successful stretches, the 6 through 9 in the batting order has come up big. So that's going to be a key factor in this series. You mentioned trades. And you mentioned the Rockies being a factor, and I think the Rockies and Marlins would be a great mix because of the Rockies need pitching, and especially pitching prospects and really hopeful prospects, and they also have a surplus of veterans that they need to figure out what they're going to do with here. We'll dive into that here and more coming up in segment number 2. But before we do that, got to tell you about Sorare. Sorare is the revolutionary new way to play fantasy baseball. If you like that card game type system, if you like seeing the stats, if you kind of like looking at it from a different perspective, Sorare is the place for you. And not only are you competing against people from all over the world, you're competing for truly incredible prizes like all-star jersey, all-star meetups, tickets, scarcity cards, signed jerseys, all sorts of stuff, including VIP experiences. Like I said, meeting your favorite all-stars there. Folks, you can find out about Sorare and lots more at sorare.com. That's SORARE.com/lockedon to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. SORARE.com/lockedon. This is the Locked On Podcast Network, free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. Locked On Marlins, also available on YouTube as well. Make sure you're subscribing there. And Peter, I want to dive more into the possible moves and things of these two teams. But I kind of want to take a left turn a little bit. You carry a tremendous amount of confidence about the Marlins and so on your social media presence, and I envy it because this is, the Marlins, two expansion teams, Rockies and Marlins, two teams with different levels of success and things of that nature, but similar. But this year especially, I feel like you've been very confident about this team, but acknowledging its flaws. What makes you more confident in this year's Marlins, and what makes you, why are you so bought into the Marlins as well? Because I get the question, why are you a Rockies fan a lot? So I'm just curious, what's made you buy in this much this year?
I think it starts, and you talked about it at the top. I absolutely love, from a Marlins organization perspective, just the pitching, and the pitching development is just immense. The upside up and down this organization is truly stratospheric, in my opinion. There's so much to like here. And for me, all the best clubs are built on having some stud arms. Like, you need the pitching, and you need a lot of it. And the Marlins have done a great job in doing that. And so, that's what gets me extremely bullish, because I know we've done the hard work. I've said it a few times on my own pod. It's trying to get this level, the levels of depth of pitching is so hard to do. And the Marlins have done it. And it's just about how can they just supercharge the offense. So the pitching with a revamped bullpen that's actually working and doing well. But the other side too is, listen, I just love Jazz Chisholm Jr. I just can't get enough of the guy, to be honest with you. And I think it's a key thing when you're a fan and a podcaster like we are, to have someone that truly excites you on your club. I think Absolutely. That is at the heart of it too, right? Because sometimes we struggle to have those connections. But for me, when Jazz Chisholm Jr. is coming up to the plate, I'm always pumped. I'm absolutely hyped. I'm just waiting to see what the guy can do. And so for me, that's a huge impact too, right? Where there's a guy that you're literally like fully bought into and just want to. I think Jazz is a special player, extremely talented. Obviously, he's on the IL now, and it was unfortunate injury, colliding into the wall and turf toe for Jazz. So, probably 2 months worth on the IL. But I'm liking where this club's going. I think Kim Ang, the GM's doing a good job. I love Skip Schumacher's having a great first one quarter of his first ever, major league season as a manager. So overall, there's been some rough. Trust me, I started following the team in 2016, back end of 2016. And there's not been much fun in that period, I can tell you. And yes, the Marlins, prior my fandom, a couple of World Series, but I haven't enjoyed them. Mm-hmm. I wasn't following baseball then. So I've basically been through a full-blown rebuild. That's all my fandom has included, as well as a Stanton MVP season, which was amazing too. And the Marlins are an interesting junction right now, but they've done the hard work, and they've got some studs in this club. It's just about adding to that. And, it's a tough division. Like the NL East is tough. Tough. The Braves are just an immense club. Immense. The Mets are trying to do their thing, throwing money at it. The Phillies, erratic but fun, is how I would describe them. And the Nats have won a World Series relatively recently as well. So the NL East loaded. The Marlins have to play well. But for me, I'm bullish about this club. I think it's a fun club. And I think they're a touch underrated as well. I think, they go a little bit under the radar because it's the Marlins and they have no fans, etc. But overall, I think there's a lot to like going on in Miami at this point.
Yeah, I think that those are all tremendous points, but I think it's really funny. You just mentioned it's you're in a division that's a good division with a person that's always stuck at the top, that's always really good up there. And another team that's throwing a bunch of money at everything, and then another team that's just always around and pesky. Sounds exactly like the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Giants. Yep. And then of course Arizona is again another team that's won the World Series in the past and certainly has the upswing. What I like about and when I hear you talk about it is it reminds me when the Rockies got back into contention there, as someone that's followed the Rockies my life, that's when you can feel confident and people are first calling you crazy and you're like, no. Look at this team. Like it isn't how it used to be. And the Rockies need to get back to that point. They're still a little bit ways away from that, but hopefully building towards that. But it's great to hear you say that. So let's kind of circle back into how making this team so do you think if the Marlins are still in second place come trade deadline, how aggressive is this Marlins team going to be? And are they willing to take a flyer on a CJ Cron, even though CJ Cron is not the all-star he's been? But the Rockies could offer 5 bats technically to the Marlins. I mean, I just going down the list: Jerks and Profar, Randall Grichuk, CJ Cron, Ryan McMahon, maybe a potential. There's more control there, and gets the defenses there. And there's the list kind of goes on and on for the Rockies to at least go out and get somebody that's pitching in AA, AAA for the Marlins. I think for one of these guys.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do think the clubs match up. That's what I've been thinking. Actually, is the Rockies clearly in need of some upper minors depth arms, prospects coming through. The Marlins certainly have that in abundance to part with in the right deals. So, yeah, I'm intrigued to see how aggressive they are. To be honest with you, I'm intrigued to see how aggressive they are and at what time of the year they're aggressive. There's no reason for the Marlins to sit there right now and consider, hey, should we see where we are at the end of July? The Marlins promoted Uri Perez, a week and a half ago. For me, the Marlins are already putting the signals out there that they're all in. Like that move, Uri Perez just turned 20. He's only just 20. It's absolutely mind-blowing. The best pitching prospect in baseball for many. 2 good starts thus far. And we're going to see him in this series, which is going to, like I said, for me, this is going to be a big test for Uri Perez. And I'm really excited to see how it goes, to be honest with you. But to me, that's already a signal of intent. The guy wasn't on the 40-man. It was just like, hey, let's get him up there. Let's get going. And so I think the Marlins, clearly if they're in the hunt in July, they'll be adding sticks. They need sticks. I'm just intrigued. Do they go earlier than that? Do they look to do something back end of June, early July, and really just think, listen, if the right deal's there, and let's say the Rockies, for example, continue to stay significantly below 500, at that point, the Rockies want to swing a deal for CJ Cron at the back end of June? I think they probably would. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play it. Kim Ang is in a contract year. Her contract expires this year, and so she's got to be all in too. And so you have to wonder, how aggressive will she be? I think super aggressive, and there's no reason not to. Clearly, if the record drastically goes the other way in the next month or so, 5 weeks, okay, maybe look at things differently. But I think they feel confident about this club. The bullpen's been there. The offense needs supercharging. How can you do that? That's for Kim to do. But I'm intrigued. And I do think these clubs, match up pretty nicely.
Yeah, and I think the Rockies provide it's the question. It really is the question of how worried would you be about losing some minor league depth when it comes to pitching? Because another name I didn't throw in there was Mike Moustakas. I mean, that's another name that has a history of big at bats, and why they have him is he hits. These are all players that I'm mentioning that are getting in the way of the Rockies prospects that they need to get playing time. Yeah. So this really does seem like a no-brainer. The Rockies standing pat at the past trade deadlines since the Nolan Arenado trade has been a mistake. And if they do that again, it's a huge mistake, especially when there are teams like the Marlins that are really no-brainers, because Marlins fans, because the Rockies aren't going to get a lot for them, but they can get some more depth where they need it, which is minor league pitching and close to MLB ready pitching. And then the Marlins get low risk, no deep commitment veteran offense bats that they can add, and at least 3 options. I mean, right off the top, Moustakas, Crone, and Randall Grichuk, all 3 seem like solid options immediately for the Marlins because they can play multiple positions, they can DH, and they can, they all have home run potential. And I think that's exactly what the Marlins would be looking to add. And I'm really bummed that we're not going to see Jazz because you mentioned it. I think Jazz, there's a reason why he got put on the cover of the show,
Yeah.
because there are plenty of other superstars. It would be very easy again to put Shohei up there, and there are other, quote unquote faces, but Jazz signals the other side of the new era of baseball that they wanted to introduce this year. It's way flashy. I think there are people that are like, Jazz is too flashy. The home run trots are too long. And I sit there and say, no, finally.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? Like, you can't sit there and disagree, at least I guess for me. If a big play happens in other sports, I love that it's allowed to be celebrated. I despised the fact that when a baseball player hit a major league pitcher, hit a home run off of them, they weren't allowed to do anything other than do the high five,
Yeah.
at home plate. We should be celebrating home runs for the greatness that they are, because hitting a home run is awesome. And so
Agreed.
I think he brings an energy, and it is a bummer that he's not going to play in this series. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about a player like Jazz. I think that's the baseball you want to show. Yes, you know what? Sometimes it might be a little too slow on the home run trots, but you know what? That's competition. That's what we see. I like to see that stuff because I think that makes your pitcher say, you know what? The mindset shouldn't be, oh, now I need to hit somebody. It should be, now I need to go out and make a pitch, and so that doesn't happen to me again. And I think we're getting to some of those unwritten rules are being tossed away, and I think that's being highlighted by baseball itself showing off a player like Jazz. Peter, we got more. We'll finish things up here. We'll give some closing thoughts and our overall predictions here for this 4-game set. This is a big one, like you said, pretty impressive there. A 4-game set here in just a moment. But I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of today's episode, and that is Gametime. And I'm sure this has happened to you. You've been like me. You were planning, everyone says, hey, we're going to this event, we're going to this concerts. Concerts for me all the time. I always forget concerts are happening. And they say, did you get your tickets? And I say, crap, no, I didn't. Well, guess what? Gametime has you covered, because buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. My favorite part of Gametime is that when you're buying those last-second tickets, you can see the pictures of where you're going to sit. So that makes you feel a lot more confident in your purchase, especially if you want to sit or you do something like playoff tickets, so you know that you are getting not only a great deal, but a great seat as well. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This is the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Marlins, Locked On Rockies crossover. Paul Holden here with Peter Pratt, and we're bringing you your daily Rockies and Marlins coverage. If you're an everyday listener, shout outs to you. Thank you to our everydayers out there. Peter, big series here as the match is up. I think this would be a really big night. Like you've kind of hyped it up to be. Would this be a nice statement win? It's not a good Rockies team, but a 4-game set on the road, especially against and you're coming off a series already against the NL West. How much would this be a big kind of statement win if the Marlins take three games here?
I think so. To be honest with you, these series are the ones that, listen, the Marlins' record in Coors has not been good. A lot of teams' record in Coors is not good. Like the Rockies just play it well. Like they're a great home team and not so great on the road, I guess. So, there's a lot of young pitching coming in here too. Eddie Cabrera's going to, start it off. Uri Perez is going. Sandy Alcantara going. I already mentioned he's having struggles this year. There's a lot of pressure here on this Marlins rotation. And Like you said, it's a 3-city, West Coast jaunt. Effectively, it's a tough ask, but a team that's in the hunt, struggling to generate some offense. This is a big series. You can't get away from that. The team's above 500, and they want to come back home after this 10 game road trip, still above 500. And so, with that in mind, they're looking to win this series. I think. I mean, I think they'd be disappointed going into it, walking away with 2-2. They'd be targeting a win. However, like I said, the history says to me this is going to be a tough ask for the Marlins. It really is. So it's going to be a really intriguing one. I think this is going to be a really, really fun series, actually. I'm excited to see what happens. It could be some Marlins pain, to be honest with you. But I think this is going to be fun. And I think the Rockies fans equally are going to just enjoy, in some ways, if that's the right word that I've used there, enjoy getting their eyeballs on this really young, inexperienced Marlins rotation. I think it's going to be, a lot of fun for the Rockies fans.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this young rotation. Even if I hate it when the young guys dominate the Rockies, which they have a habit of doing. But if it's with high class pitching, which the Marlins always have, it's always it's an entertaining watch. What is it to win this series? What has to who has to step up? Who has to perform? Who are the key players that Rockies fans should keep their eyes out when they're looking for the impact players? And off the rip, it's going to be like a Chris Bryant and these young guys for the Rockies that are stepping up. But the big thing is this rotation. That the same thing as just as much as the young Marlins rotation needs to step up, the young guys in the Rockies rotation, as well as Kyle Freeland and those remaining in the rotation, Austin Gomber as well, need to step up as well. Who needs to step up to get this series win for the Marlins?
Yeah, for me, it starts with Eddie Cabrera. Edward Cabrera, who has been so up and down this year, so inconsistent, so many walks. But for me, he's going to be going to game one. It's setting the tone. And what kind of Edward Cabrera do you get? It's going to be the first question. But for me, the other from an offensive side is Brian De La Cruz, heading into this series, has got the longest active hit streak across Major League Baseball. Everyone's thinking, who the hell's Brian De La Cruz? But, for me, it's, the Marlins lost a few sticks. Brian De La Cruz has all of a sudden caught fire. And so I'm really intrigued to see, can Brian De La Cruz, continue that into Coors? Like, he'll be feeling good about himself, rolling into Coors. He's hitting everywhere else. He's going to be thinking, let's eat. I've done the hard work. I've done well in all the other ballparks. Let's go and eat now. So I'm intrigued to see if Brian De La Cruz can keep it going. Equally, the other story is a couple of the vets for the Marlins too. And like I mentioned, it's about, can the bottom of the lineup start to deliver? Gene Segura has been below average. I think is probably a little bit I'm overselling it by saying he's been below average. Joey Wendell as well. Like these two guys, vets, former All-Stars, both of them, both had extremely slow starts to the year. As Gene, Joey Wendell find a way to turn the corner, just start to piece some hits together. It's been sparse, I'm not going to lie. So, the main guys we know about, we know what Luis Arias and Jorge Soler can do. And actually, we know what Mean Gene and Joey Wendell can do. They just haven't shown it this year. And it's like, can they find a way to get it going? And can Brian De La Cruz stay hot? And for me, like I mentioned, Edward Cabrera, and then, Uri Perez's first start on the road, and his first road start is in Coors. Big test for the 20-year-old. That is going to be one hell of a fun start, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. And two really good bullpens matching up. I think Marlins fans might be surprised to hear that the Rockies actually do rank at the top of a few bullpen metrics and have a few great arms. So if these are close games, we're going to see some really great pitching. And just a couple of other names, Ezekiel Tovar, Brenton Doyle, two young guys that are getting consistent playing time for the Rockies. Ezekiel Tovar, I wonder if now with this call-up, he's now the fourth youngest player in baseball. But the Rockies turning to another young shortstop, defensive stud, still figuring out that offense, but the Rockies are going to need him and this defense to be sharp to win. And I think one key factor that's going to play a role here, if the games are close, that one-run ball game, who wins that one-run ball game is going to be a big factor. So again, I think as we look ahead to this one, it's the young Miami rotation going up against a Coors Field, a 4-game set at Coors Field. big test for both teams here as good pitching goes up against an offense that needs to step up more in the Rockies, and a pitching staff that can flex a little bit on a weaker Miami defense or offense as well. This should be a great matchup. We're gonna wrap things up here on today's Locked On Podcast crossover event. I've been Paul Holden, the host of the Locked On Rockies podcast. You can find all your Rockies coverage at LO Rockies on Twitter, or Locked On Rockies on YouTube, or your favorite streaming service. Peter, where can they go to follow you and all the great Marlins action?
Absolutely world-class hosting from you today, brother. I have to call that out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't have the graphics to help anyway. So listening along on podcast form, you can hit me up primarily on Twitter at Miami Marlins _UK. Of course, you got the Locked On Marlins podcast, the Twitter handle for that one at Locked On Marlins. See what they did there. So yeah, same as if you want some more Marlins vibes, head on over to there and hit me up.
And they're great vibes. Let me tell you again, Peter, one of the best baseball follows there. I hope the DJ doesn't drop it too much on the Rockies here in this series, but at the same time, it's going to be a good one. Peter Pratt, thank you again so much. Folks, thank you for making Locked On your first listen of the day. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Podcast Network.